Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. And for you gold members, I'll be doing the private Zoom Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time. Look for the link. So anyways, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm joined by my pal, Nicki Jhabvala from the Washington Post. He's playing hurt today, folks. A little bit stuffed up.
A little bit, a
So
little bit. But you gotta push through these injuries, man. It's that time of year. Nobody's 100% this
it's
time of year.
December football. So
It's
here we go.
December football.
So speaking of December football and guys playing hurt, Jon Allen back on the field today.
Yeah,
We just got back up from up there. What are your thoughts about the possible return? And I think he's going to play at some point.
for sure.
So what do you think about his return?
Definitely a welcome surprise. I know you were on it first with your story, but it is. I mean, I thought for sure he was done for the
Yeah.
season. I mean, for a player of that size, you think about the weight that he's going to move. You kind of need your upper body muscle, but um, as you reported, like some good news as they went in there for surgery, which gave him a
Right.
chance to get to this point. But that's huge for that defensive line. They haven't been as perhaps productive as maybe they would hope in the pass rush. So having him back should help. We'll see when he's activated, but opening that practice window is huge.
And it's funny because he and Payne get a lot of criticism. They're high paid guys, right?
Yep,
And they were
sure.
Pro Bowlers who may have they been playing at that level, but he's still a quality NFL
Right,
starter.
right.
And he can still help you. And like I like what Johnny Newton can do. He's a young kid who's been a bit inconsistent
Yeah,
at times.
yep. And his John Allen's presence alone, um, it forces offense to pay
Yeah,
attention to him, which
yeah.
can create other opportunities on the outside. So, it just John Allen being John Allen is it's a big boost for that line.
Especially at this time of the year, you get him and you add
Yeah,
Lattimore last week. Like
yeah.
those are good additions to bolster a defense
Great
down the stretch.
additions. Yeah, I mean, Lattimore is the one that really intrigues me because I
Yeah,
feel like so many of these matchups have come down
yeah.
to the secondary. They got AJ Brown, they got some really good pieces in that passing game. And we've seen what can happen when, this team isn't as stout in the secondary. Um,
For a
but
couple of years.
yeah, so getting a true shutdown corner, that's going to be a really interesting matchup for me.
What jumped out to you about his game the other day?
Nothing. That's why it was great. Like he was, they hardly threw it his way. They know if
Yeah,
any team knows what Marshon Lattimore
right.
can do, it's that team. So
There was
they smartly avoided that side of the
there
field.
was one play where I think it was Hayner looked over there and like, your guy's open.
Yeah.
And
It's
he
like,
didn't
yeah,
go
nah,
to it.
nah, I'm
It's like,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But going back to Allen, just how would you assess the play of the line from what we've seen? I
Yeah.
know the run game, it's not all on them. The
Right.
run
Yeah,
defense has
sure.
been bad
Yeah.
all year. So what do you think?
I mean, I feel like for what they've had, it's been pretty good. You still would like to see him get home more
Right.
on some of their rushes, and they had more pressures, but like you said, the run game that to me has been the biggest issue with the defense, and it's not all on them, it's not all on linebackers, it's the shared blame.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's they're not going to create numbers that you would expect if you had two elite edge rushers. That again, this team had two elite edge rushers supposedly, and like it didn't mesh well. So that I think they're still trying to find that right formula up front.
I also wonder too for Joe Witt, like, that Jon Allen was there for the first 6 games. You're still kind of finding your way
Sure.
defensively.
Yeah.
Have they started to find with what Fowler's been doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like with Armstrong being back, I wonder what the trickle down, if you, like you said, you get Jon Allen back in there and now you've already been starting to do some things on the edge. How much can that help just getting him?
I would think it would help a lot if everybody's in sync on the line. And I think that's the biggest thing is,
Right.
communication has to be really good so they can run their games, run their stunts, create opportunities on the edges. I feel like sort of the lack of communication or, not playing in sync was a hindrance to, you know, past lines here. Um, but having that impact on the interior, it should create more opportunities on
Sure.
the outside.
It should, in theory.
Yes,
A lot of
sure,
things have been
yes,
sounding good in theory here in the
yes.
past.
It should create more opportunity for Lulu
Correct.
too. I mean,
Correct.
like he's been, I mean, he's a force. Wherever he's lined up, he's an absolute force, but he is running into doubles as he goes down.
I also wonder too, for a guy like Newton,
Yeah.
he's playing all these double teams now.
Yeah.
Can you then use when, and my guess is for Allen, it's like you come back for the Atlanta game. That's my guess, right? That would
Sure.
make sense. So can you, the trickle down would be maybe putting him in different situations that allow him to maybe be a little bit more
Yeah.
effective like he was earlier,
Yeah, and they had packages before John Allen went out
Right.
with 3 DTs.
Right.
So I still think he'll be used, and this has been such a great learning moment for him, just to
Yeah.
get these reps
Yeah.
and to get that time that you usually don't get if you're playing behind, a high paid starter.
Right. So the other thing, Philly on Sunday.
Yep.
We saw what happened the first game. How are you, when you're looking at this game, how do you assess it? Like I was just talking with Bram for his show, but his point is, you kind of need to win one of these games,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So how
Yeah.
do you look at it? Because like you can't just be, oh, the roster, this or that. You got a chance to win. You had a chance
Yeah.
to win up there. How
Right.
do you looking at
No,
this?
I feel like, they're all must wins if we're gonna use that cliche, but like this one, like if you lose this game, think about how much pressure it puts on that Atlanta game.
Oh yeah.
And there's the unknown component now with
Right,
their quarterback
right.
situation. It's prime time now on Sunday Night
Yeah.
Football. So like, the Eagles are playing lights out. What, 10 in a row they won? They look tremendous, but a win this weekend would take some of the pressure off. You still gotta win both, but like it takes some of the pressure off. And it just revitalizes the team. I feel like they've really started to find their footing again after the bye and the losing streak. And you get a win against a team like this, my gosh,
So-
like that could really boost things.
Sure. And I also, how much more comfortable does Jayden look now compared to going into
Yeah.
that game?
A lot more comfortable. A lot more comfortable. I think that, he was dealing with
Okay.
injuries and a lot going into
Yeah.
the last game. So getting the full Jayden Daniels experience is huge. Getting him on the run more. That was during that stretch where they couldn't run the ball at all.
Right.
I think in part because he was, dealing with some nicks. And I think they had only 18 rushing yards, I want to say, in the last game. Something.
It wasn't a lot because
Yeah.
Pittsburgh stopped him, and then he had a couple, but nothing like what we've
Yeah.
seen typically. And
that offense, Washington's offense moves when he moves, like it allows them to open up some of the deep passes. You've
Sure.
got they got multiple threats that they can, throw out a defense.
do you think, because listen, and he's in a position where he's getting back to himself.
Yeah.
You have maybe no Zach Ertz.
Right.
We know no Austin Eckler, Noah Brown.
Right.
How much you have to rely on Jayden making those plays like we saw the other
Yeah.
day? How to really kind of, is he in that position
Yeah.
where he can do that?
I think so, but I think this team is relying on him to make those kind of plays in every game. They don't have a ton of depth. This is still year one in this rebuild. I'm not calling it a recalibration, stupid. But this is year one, so they have some really good pieces, but like this team will go where Jayden goes, so they need sort of all of him to really get these wins, and they're still close even against the Saints. It's close, like, hopefully they don't blow a 17-point lead like they did last time, but I think you're gonna need him to do all that stuff.
And I think because and sometimes it's those that 4th and 1, the hurdle, the 3rd and 2, picking it up with your legs, like those little plays. Now the funny thing is the Saints, like you hit a couple of those to Terry, it's a different game.
Totally.
But they didn't, so it wasn't. So and Frankie Louvu catches intercepts the ball, it's a different game, but he didn't.
But that's why I think that the margin for error is so small with
Right.
this team. It's like you don't have the depth. You're lacking in playmakers right now.
That's
so he has to do the extra to get by.
correct. I mean, and do you feel like, because the first game it was short week, they are banged up. He's banged up. He's got all, whatever's going on with all of them. And, do you look at this and say, okay, you are in a much better position despite some of these injuries? Or is that hard?
I mean, I feel like they're in a better. Again, I feel like that the team centers on him. It's not only him, obviously, but we've seen what this franchise has been like without an elite quarterback. I think he's still young, still has plenty to prove. Yes, but they've had some really good playmakers, but if the quarterback is not to the level they need, it's not going to go very far. So, I think they are in better position because he's physically, mentally, probably too, with what he's seen on the field, in better position. So, you hate to lose, the red zone threats like Zach Ertz,
Right.
or, the yak guys like Eckler, but it's the bigger value is in the quarterback.
I also am curious to see second time against a really good defense.
Yeah.
How does he do? And also how Kingsbury does, because
Yeah.
the first game, that was a game where, Terry McLaurin was almost a statue on the left side as far as they
Right.
just kept him there.
Right.
And since then, there's been a lot more movement, but
Yeah.
not just movement, but targets on the other side.
Right.
That's
Right.
really increased more.
Right. Targets moving him all around,
Mhm.
pre-snap, post-snap. I mean, both
Yeah.
his touchdowns were like,
Yeah.
traveling across the field. Maybe one was by design to do that, but yeah, I think they're gonna have to. They need to keep with that mindset of being more dynamic, because that secondary with those two rookies, they're something. They were really good.
I really like those guys.
They're
Yeah.
tough. So
And the safeties are good too. So last thing then, concern about the run game after last week is they were humming along.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt like they got out physical a little bit, but what do you have concern about that going forward?
A little bit. I just, I think Brian Robinson runs so hard. He puts everything he has into every single run that you just always feel like there's an expiration time on his body. So like you just hope each week he can continue to produce as he is, but it's a lot on him.
Yeah.
With Eckler being out, and I wish they would use Chris Rodriguez more. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I just think he gives a little burst when he's been used like late in the second half.
You bring some energy with a guy like that off the bench, and I know like there's similar style, but he does when he's fresh.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, just
And
the occasional chunk play can.
Yeah, I think the line also missed Biotish last week.
Yeah,
And not to put everything on Michael Beater, but
No,
I think
yeah.
Biotish is really good.
Right.
So I think that played. I think that may have.
I would
played
agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I think the line overall has to play better, but that's easy for me to say sitting in a leather chair while they're.
But but nobody's dealing with the sniffles like you are. So, and you're still here. So
Why I get paid the big bucks.
there you go.
Yeah.
Anyways, Nicki, anything you want to plug? Anything you got coming up?
I might have a sort of an off the beat story. No, it's on the beat. It's Commanders related, but it's a little different story that I'm pretty excited about. That may come out tomorrow or late this week.
There you go. WashingtonPost.com. My pal Nicki Jhabvala. Thanks for joining me, Nicki. Thank you as always for listening. And I'll be back on Saturday with my 5 things I think. Again, gold members, Thursday night Zoom, 7:30. Join me there. Talk to you next time.